All right. So you're like a child that's wandered into the movie theater halfway through and you're wondering what's going on. This is Donny Cast for the 1st of July, 2022. That means Pride Month is over. We can wash our hands and go back to not caring, just like the corporations do. So this episode, it took a little bit longer to get done today because initially I was going to talk about the Leviathan, which is the state of California, and I had like 7 stories to talk about with just the incompetence of California over the last 2 days. And then at the last minute, when I had uh, this episode like halfway done, I found another article that I had to do on California, and then I just said, "Screw it! I'm scrapping all the California stuff." So I can finish this episode and just go on a different direction. So I'm just getting this out into the ether. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the California is horrible uh, section of the show afterwards. So this is the prime minister up on screen of the Netherlands, Mark Rutte or Rutte, or I don't fucking care. Um, and the main story of the day is going to end up being the Netherlands, and their farming crisis that they're causing themselves. But that shifted from Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is a piece of shit. And so anyway, I had to just throw this guy up there at the last minute, and I'll talk a little bit about, like, I don't want to call it game theory, but the idea that if you're not looking out for your interests, no one else has your interest um, to look out for, which includes if your prime minister has certain globalist machinations, he's showing up to the World Economic Forum and he's pushing out their agenda, he's probably doesn't give a shit about the national interests of the country, which he's supposed to look out for. And I bring that up because the first thing that we're going to talk about, and I have not been able to find an actual story on this, this is just a tweet from Rebel News up there in Canada. So the public safety minister for Justin Trudeau, Marco Mendocino, whatever, I don't care, says Justin Trudeau's government will be launching a mandatory gun buyback program. They are going to come take your guns by force if you don't hand them over peacefully. I am sure nothing bad can come from this. Oh, and by the way, today is Canada Day. And since Canada is not a real country, that means today is not a real holiday. It's a fake holiday. So if you're Canadian, fuck you. Uh, so anyway, seriously, if you're in Canada, lock up your children, lock up your guns. The Leviathan's coming for your liberty pretty shortly. So let's see. Moving on from that, we got to go back to the Supreme Court. There's more Supreme Court news. I'm getting tired of it too. In this case, we have the actions by the justices sent these cases back to the lower courts, considering in light the June 23 ruling, the Bruin decision that declared the first time the constitutional right to carry a handgun in public for self-defense. So they kicked back a whole bunch of court cases that they had and said, because we saw Bruin, you should reevaluate your decisions based off of how we viewed the Bruin case up there in New York. So what this does is it's going to affect Maryland's ban on highly dangerous military-style rifles. This is in the article, their words, not mine. The justices sent back to lower courts other rulings upholding bans in New Jersey and California. Go fuck yourself, California. On firearm magazines with more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Also, California's ban on under 21-year-olds being able to buy long guns was ruled unconstitutional by the Ninth Circuit, which is a little odd considering, if I remember correctly. So continuing, it says the challenges in those cases were filed by state affiliates of the National Rifle Association, a guns right group closely aligned with Republicans. Bullshit fucking propaganda. National Rifle Association financially is insolvent, just like the DNC, the Democrats. The actual political party of the Democrats, the National Rifle Association, is insolvent. They file for bankruptcy, and they're as good at protecting rights as the GOP is good at protecting gun rights. They're fucking functionally retarded. They are the George Soros of protecting the yellow stars in Germany from the guys in the the gray shirts and the goose steps. Eat a dick, you fucking propaganda, Rutgers paper, right? So the Supreme Court also threw out a lower court decision that had upheld Hawaii's restrictions on openly carrying firearms in public as valid under the Second Amendment. So again, the Supreme Court kicked this back and said you need to reevaluate some of your gun restrictions because they might, infringe on shall not infringe. So yeah, that's what the court did. And stupid blue states are doing unconstitutional things. Who would have thunk that, right? So moving on from that, from the more court stuff. So yesterday we had the first undefined justice take office in Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's functionally retarded. She can't define woman, and she also has no basis for law by her own admission. So anyway, yesterday, and I saw this and I didn't believe it. I had to go hunt it down. So I have a little bit of evidence here. So Good Morning America tweeted that Ketanji Brown Jackson was the first Black Supreme Court justice. They had to correct that 5 hours later, saying that she's the first Black female Supreme Court justice. And I didn't believe it at first because I was like, "There's no way you're this fucking stupid." So I found the Fox article that says they deleted the tweet. What makes this so horrible is this is beyond stupid. This is beyond words because you're fucking hiring people that are that fucking retarded that they don't even know current news. And this is after Clarence Thomas got fucking roasted by ignorant people over his views on the Roe versus Wade, the Dobbs case. So you have an actual Black Supreme Court justice sitting, and whoever wrote that out, if we're being genuine and saying that it wasn't just a mistake that they screwed up, but they don't even understand basic, modern current news, and that would mean that they don't understand history. Also, because we had a Black Supreme Court justice that retired in like 92. That's Thurgood Marshall. So she would be the third Black Supreme Court justice, first woman who can't define herself as woman. And again, that the most charitable explanation is they just forgot to say first female. That's the most charitable one. But in this day and age, with the people that are behind the scenes running these things, and the state of the United States public education system, like, yeah, who fucking knows? Like, I am shocked that we got someone that could pull themselves off TikTok long enough to be able to tweet out a fucking retarded tweet to that was erroneous in the first place. So moving on from that haha story to all the depressing stuff, if that wasn't depressing enough. So this is not depressing. I'm sorry. We have good news today. So ignoring voters, because obviously this is Jeff Bezos's tax dump propaganda rag, the Washington Post. Ignoring voters, Arizona approves nation's largest school voucher scheme. And this is yet another one of those things that just kind of makes my nether regions a little warm on the inside. So let's see what I got. So this is school vouchers, and the other good thing that makes it so much better is they actually refused to put oversight in for the vouchers. So this is essentially like if we can't have pay for play, which is like I opt into paying the government to have public education, the best that we're going to get is they take my taxes away by force, and then I ask for them back for the voucher. So it says that House Majority Leader Ben Toma, the bill's prime mover, said accountability would come from parents who know what's best for their children. Fucking A, right. Finally a politician that like I would say gets it, but he's serving his own interest because no one else will serve his interest for him. And then you have State Senator Christine Marsh, a Democrat, who said, "We have no fiscal transparency. We have no academic transparency. I'd like to know how many families that earn maybe $1 million a year are getting voucher money. Who fucking cares? Fuck you. All animals are equal, period. Or some animals are more equal than others. You can't have both, you fucking idiot." versus how many families are earning maybe $30,000 or $40,000 a year are getting voucher money. Fuck you. Not your fucking problem. They pay taxes. It is their money that they're getting back, you dumb fucking animal. Right? It's almost like if we had accountability, we wouldn't have fucking shoulder fire missiles that went to Ukraine showing up on eBay. Like, I don't care if you can't even have accountability of like the billions of dollars that you're laundering in Ukraine. I don't give a shit about parents magically getting money and just being able to not send their children to get brainwashed in public education systems, and having a better chance of actually learning things like who Thurgood Marshall is, you dumb fucking animal. Um, as I'm trying not to cuss, but then all I do is put the modifier of fucking in front of it. Yes, that's how amazing I am. So then we have this new Missouri photo ID law that doesn't take effect until till November. Again, this is propaganda a little bit, and the law is still a little bit sus. I mean, it is election fortification after all, because there's no part of what the law does is it allows for someone to have an absentee ballot and they don't have to give an explanation to the state, but it does have voter ID in there. Someone can vote without an ID; they just get a provisional ballot. Yada yada yada. I mean, at least if you're trying to put a silver lining on it, it's better than just letting certain people fortify the election without any attempt to change it. But like, this is lacking in most ways of how last election was fortified. I just don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. And with the cesspool of St. Louis going on within Missouri, that election can get fortified any way they want. So you might need to do a better job than just allowing mail-in ballots to occur without challenge. Let's see. Oh, I have in here with my notes before. Oh, wait. Sorry, that's the next story. I'm horrible. So, moving on, we have Wisconsin's conservative high court hands GOP another weapon, and this is another one that makes me a little happy on the inside. So the ruling this week that the political appointees don't have to leave their post until the Senate confirms their successor. So basically, even if you get your political opponent in office, like, until you can actually work with the legislature to get them confirmed, then the previous administration's appointee gets to stay and do the job and just and cause gridlock. And again, as the libertarian that I am, the internal Ron Swanson just goes like, the more government efficiency that we have is better than having the ability for the Leviathan to choke the individual. So I'm all for just like, let's just make this horrible bad. Let's see. The Republicans are likely to oh yeah, it's in this article why some of this stuff is absolute garbage. If I can go find it for you, it actually has in here: Republicans are likely to control the legislature for a year to come, largely due to gerrymandered districts. Fuck you. Both sides do this, and whatever. Like, if you neither side is playing by ethical rules, that means both sides need, again, game theory, both sides need to be playing by the same rules to be playing the same game. If both sides are gerrymandering, it is not gerrymandering at that point, because both sides are doing it, but the person that gets screwed over is the actual people, because you have two political parties that are fighting over the power, because the party seeks power for the sake of power. Do you not understand? So anyway, that's about, I think, all I have in this particular case. At least Wisconsin is trying not to let as I screw things up again, because I'm awesome, as Wisconsin at least doesn't want to have this impending left-wing progressive globalist Leviathan choke them to death on the inside. So moving on, we have a whole bunch of stuff showing how bad the U.S. economy is. JPM warms perilously close to recession as Atlanta Fed slashes second quarter GDP to negative 2.1%. Again, recession is a retraction or a retraction of growth or negative growth over two successive quarters. So the Atlanta Fed slashed the forecast from for quarter two to negative 2.1%, meaning the U.S. is now technically already in a recession. We're just waiting for some experts, and with experts like these who news enemies to come out and say, like, I guess we're in a legitimate recession. So it also has down here growth in the second quarter of 2022 has been cut to contractionary negative 2.1%, down from negative 1% on June 30th, down from 0% on June 15th, down from plus 0.9% on June 6th, down from 0.13 on June 1, and down from 0.19%. Like, fuck you. Like you're an expert. Why are you changing things when the tea leaves said all the way back before the actual economic downturn, or the pandemic lockdowns, if you can hear the train horn, the pandemic lockdowns, everyone was already seeing the model for this occurring. By anybody, I mean not the experts already saw that there was a massive bubble brewing in 2020. Even back to the fact that some of the modeling was showing that, like, if Trump had been reelected, he would be sitting on this powder keg going into his second term, and that second term he would have to deal with a recession. So there were particular talks before the election, even about the Trump administration, and whoever won this election would be sitting on this bubble. And it was probably not the president, the presidency, the nomination, or excuse me, the election win probably didn't have as much value, knowing that you were going to be saddled with the anchor of a bad economy one way or another. Almost better off to lose than to win the 2020 election, election fortification. So let's see. We're in a recession. It just hasn't been officially called by the Biden administration. Does it? Oh yeah. And the other thing is the Biden administration is fighting this so hard because they don't want the bad press of having to officially say that they're in a recession. This has been popping up all over the place. So they're doing whatever they can to, for lack of a better way to put it, cook the books in the meantime. So they don't have to say it. And all this means that the Fed is now hiking rates going into a recession. More stuff talking about how badly the Biden administration is handling all this stuff. Welcome to the recession. This is the same news outlet, Zero Hedge. Welcome to the recession. Atlanta Fed slashes second quarter GDP to negative 1%, pushing first half into contraction. You know, and again, more stuff that we already know. Idiot Jim Cramer, who cares what you have to say? Again, we're technically in a recession. According to Atlanta's Fed GDP Now model, estimates for the real GDP growth in the second quarter of 2022 has been cut contractually to negative 1%. I believe I already read this stuff, so I'm just repeating myself over again. As I look, one of these things had stuff at the bottom. Anyway, so it's just more stuff saying that the economy's bad. Everybody knows the economy's bad, except the official experts are refusing to say what needs to be said because the optics are not particularly good. Pulling back the curtain on the real economy. The economy has already been cracking since 2022. I already said that. And the Fed is playing catch up. They're pouring more gas on the fire that they caused. It's important. This is from the article. It's important to keep in mind that this plunge in GDP occurred before the Fed Reserve started raising interest rates, meaning the Fed did in fact raise rates into economic weakness, much like they did in the onset of the Great Depression. This is really fucking good news, causing even more damage to the economy in the process of prolonging the effects of the crisis. And this is kind of, I don't want to. It's bad to phrase things by saying, "Well, you should know this," but it is very widely regarded that with government intervention during the Great Depression, it only made something that could have lasted a few months to a few years into something that lasted decades, and we needed to get out of primarily with the advent of World War II. And we're going to get there, of how fucking bad this is, causing even more damage to the economy in the process and prolonging the effects of the crisis. The difference this time is that we do not face a standard deflationary threat, but stagflationary one. Stagnant economy along with inflation. It's a completely different ball game. Yes, it's bad. When easy credit and stimulus move. So the whole point of this article is at the very, very end, where it's talking about when easy credit and stimulus move out of play, the real economy is revealed. In our case, the true face is an ugly one. And we're waiting for the end of this easy credit and the stimulus checks to run out, and then people have to start fending for themselves. Knife fights in the streets. So as we move on to this Rutgers article, and they're trash, but I like finding article, or at least going back and finding articles that are a little more accessible to the normal person than some of the ones like off of Zero Hedge. So the S&P 500 closes the book on the biggest first half plunge since 1970. Again, we're all blackpilling today. This came out yesterday. This is revolving yesterday, yesterday's article. So this was 3:56 a.m. on June 30th. So this has to do with Thursdays. I haven't seen any numbers on Fridays. Wall Street, and this one, let's see. Wall Street ended their session lower on Thursday, crossing the finish line of a grim month and quarter, a dismal coda to the S&P 500's worst first half in more than a century. Of 11 major sectors in the S&P 500, energy is the only one showing a year-to-date gain, added by crude oil prices spiking over supply concerns due to Russian-Ukraine conflict. Yes, a problem that the government's caused. It's the only portion doing well is the portion that the government actively created. Shares of Walmart, and then at the bottom, I want to go back and talk about something. All three major U.S. stock indexes finished the month in the second quarter in the negative territory, with the S&P 500 notching its steepest first half percentage drop since 1970. We already talked about that. NASDAQ had the largest ever January-June percent drop, while the Dow suffered its biggest first half percentage plunge since 1962. Fuck you. And then all the way at the bottom, put this in your corncob hat and think about it for later, is that, and this was just weird at the end of this thing, shares of Walgreens Boots Alliance Inc. fell after a quarterly profit plunged 76%, hurt by its opioid settlement with Florida and a decrease in U.S. pharmacy sales on waning demand for COVID-19 vaccinations. So this was just at the end of this article talking about, how bad the markets are, and it just throws this Wall Street bone out there. I was like, okay, interesting enough, but that little tidbit will come back at least two times when we talk about this later. So Forbes, SEC fines Earnest Young $100 million over employee cheating on their accounting exams. A little like the pot calling the kettle black. These are the people that are supposed to be checking your taxes to make sure you're not cheating, that are cheating, and then the SEC swoops in like the government albatross that they in and shits all over everything, waving their finger saying, I'll call you black kettle because I'm the pot. And this has been going on for years, I guess, at Earnest and Young. And that's part of the reason why they're getting fined, because they were like, Earnest and Young's like, well, I don't fucking care that we have unethical employees. Going back to that Good Morning America, Ketanji Brown being the first black Supreme Court justice. I'm really wondering culturally what is going on, to the point where you're just having people willy-nilly cheat on their tests in a company that would, support it. And as we move forward to our next story of the day, so I close everything out. Just remember that SEC stuff. We're going to get back to our payoffs here in a second. So, as we talk about pot calling the kettle black, we have FOIA requests reveal progressive money fueling FBI, DOJ, leftist activists, and election official coordination. So you have Missouri trying to unfortify their elections. And now you have essentially lobbying going on with these non-governmental organizations that are lobbying federal institutions to change electioneering going on in the country. It says freedom of information requests have uncovered oddball and opaque relationships between some state officials, federal officials, corporation, progressive activists, and those trying to influence the conduct of those same election officials. These relationships extend to junkets that include baseball games, travel, and even data exchanges between state officials and outside progressive groups. So think of it like somebody is trying to make you their friend so they can whisper in your ear. There's nothing unethical about this. We haven't read articles about like relationships between FBI agents and reporters and all that good nonsense. So anyway, which is unethical. So this is just election lobbying. So instead of bringing in corporations lobbying for business, which I don't have a problem with. If you're a piece of shit politician and you're going to get swayed by lobbying, but I have a problem with essentially what's bribing. And in this place, like this becomes a bigger issue when it comes to the election, because explain to me the line between a foreign adversary developing an asset and these non-governmental agencies that are going out there and developing federal officials for the same prospect. Like, there's no difference at this point. The only difference is at this point, like if you look at Project Veritas and how they basically appear to be honeypotting certain individuals to get gotcha moments on camera, the only difference that's going on here is you're bribing people with like companionship to go to baseball games so you have their ear. It's unethical, and I don't know why it's being done, and I don't know why these individuals don't realize they're being developed as assets. I just blows my mind sometimes when I read these things. It's like, oh, that's super awesome. Let's see. So we go to Forbes. SEC's imminent climate disclosure rules present a unique opportunity for business leaders. Pot calling the kettle black. So, in this case, we have companies needn't be intimidated by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's SEC imminent mandate for public companies to file standardized climate risk disclosures. What? So when I pull up the actual SEC, right? SEC response climate and ESG risks and opportunities. The investor demand for climate and other environmental social governance information soars, the SEC is responding with an all agency approach. Why? So the mission statement of the SEC, the mission of the SEC is to protect investors, maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets, and facilitate capital formation. The SEC strives to promote a market environment that is worthy of the public's trust. You're not having me have any trust when you're taking a non-government organization like BlackRock or Vanguard or State Street, who are creating these ESG scores, and then you're validating them by giving investor information out to individuals who ask you to validate it. This is circular logic. It didn't exist. We are saying that it exists. Therefore, we're going to give it more legitimacy, saying that we will recognize it and give the information back to you. There's no neutrality in this. Going back to their mission statement, like where it says protect investors, maintain fair and orderly markets. Like there's no neutrality. There you are picking a side by talking about it. You are picking a side, and we'll get to that in a second when it talks to the Biden administration giving out money for atheism. Like you, by virtue of picking a side, by virtue of the Swiss either taking Russian gold or not taking Russian gold, they are picking a side. Pacifism is objectively fascism. George Orwell. So in this case, the SEC picking the side of ESG scores is saying that they are a thing, and I am willing it into existence. The good idea fairy, right? by not picking a side, which would be not recognizing it. At the very least, they are trying to be neutral. They are not even attempting to be neutral at this point. ESG is a thing. That's the bubble. Now the SEC is going to develop guidelines involving it, and there's going to be a massive fucking booby trap that the economies of the world hit. So with the SEC's imminent climate disclosure rules present a unique opportunity for businesses, even to the point, and this makes it hard, that certain businesses will get hurt because if they don't have an ESG score, they're not being legitimized by the SEC. Okay. Biden administration reaches agreement to purchase 105 million doses of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. Why? Why are you spending more money? Why are you spending this money? Like, I don't. Why? A $3.2 billion contract with options to buy 300 more doses, considering that Walgreens numbers are down because vaccinations are waning. Why? And I'm not even talking about the efficacy of the vaccine. I'm just saying, why are you continuing to buy doses of something that appear to have waning demand? As you probably heard that motorcycle, because I can feel it shaking in my foot. Let's see. And I pulled this article up to continue this idea as Walgreens earnings slide as number of vaccines wane. Why? Like I can't be in the same fucking functioning world that these other idiots are in, because it's basically saying, why is the government buying more of something that is going away? It doesn't make any sense to me. But I am not the expert, because with experts like these, who needs enemies? To look out for my interests. So now we have House Republicans demand answers from Biden administration over grants to promote atheism worldwide. Like, this is objectively illegal. 14th Amendment, government shall make no laws infringing on. First Amendment, this is the separation of state that certain individuals have been whining about is being eroded. The state taking a position about religion is them making a decision. And in this case, even if it wasn't classified as an actual religion, I think it's somewhere in this article where it's talking about it, humanism and atheism are designated as an identifiable group by the United States. That even if that wasn't the case, by picking the side that of atheism, you are picking a side against religion, which is by default going to be legally picking a religion. Like, and to think that we have people that are in power that are just so incompetent that they don't understand that. And at this point, like, the big question is, are they incompetent merely because they're incompetent objectively again, but is this intentional? And it's moving more and more towards the conclusion that they are intentionally being this incompetent. The Biden administration misses major oil lease deadline, and absolute disgrace. The Biden administration did not give an explanation after it missed its own deadline to plan future oil and gas lease sales, because they don't give a shit. Because this is what they want. They want to be able to push other forms of alternative energy so they can embezzle that money that's going to go into the ether, because they don't give a shit. And again, this is objectively not Putin's doing. This is your intentional incompetence that's going on within your economy. And there's really not much anymore to say about this. It's just that they were supposed to do it and they didn't do it because they're like, I don't fucking care. And just to continue on the idea that they don't give a shit with gas prices rising, and the Biden EPA has America's biggest oil field in its regulatory crosshairs. In this case, it says the and the Biden administration could step in. There's a lot more to this particular story. So let's back up and talk about West Virginia versus the EPA, that the Supreme Court just came down the line and said, The EPA in particular, but this will probably extend to the SEC, the ATF, and other regulatory bodies, cannot do things that are outside the scope provided by Congress. So in this case, especially in this case, because the EPA falls directly underneath the executive branch, Biden administration could step in and say, fuck off. Don't fuck with gas prices when they're this fucked up. And he's not, because fuck you, I'm incompetent and I want this suffering to go on within the country. So not only do you have something that's likely unconstitutional, that is very poor timing if it wasn't done on purpose by an administration that's so incompetent that they let uh, oil lease deadlines lapse without justification. Now and this is from the article, the proposed regulation hiked or the proposed regulations take aim at Permian Basin, the largest oil field in the United States, accounting for 95 million barrels of gasoline per day and 40% of the oil produced domestically. Because they're not trying to, the Leviathan is not trying to choke us all to death right now on purpose. And to show furthermore why the Leviathan is doing what it's doing. So I'm unfamiliar with this Terra show or WWL Radio New Orleans, but in this article, it talks about the U.S. Armed Forces aren't even projected to hit 40% of their yearly recruiting growth by the time of the calendar flips to 2023. This is after they lowered the requirement to no longer needing a high school diploma. And with America's public education system, it's probably increasing the potential of the service member if they were to join. Because, having a high school diploma just means that you're functionally retarded and indoctrinated. So just if you weren't aware, like I'm a military veteran and I no longer wear my gear because I'm so ashamed of the current state, not just of the country, but in particular the military and my former branch of service. So let's talk about lack of accountability, because we've already talked about that today. So now we have the Pentagon agency wants arms monitors on ground in Ukraine to track billions in hardware. Yeah, because they're already popping up on eBay, and they're like, after we voted on this and threw the money into the ether, and these arms are out there, and we have no direct way to monitor the literal billions of dollars in arms being handed out, we might want to have some type of accountability. Because the good idea fairy didn't touch you on the forehead with their wand before fucking heck. She's a fucking. Yes. So let's see. And then speaking of downgrading our military, Japan monitoring China-Russia military show of force. So they're just the China and Russian military or navies have gotten together and they are doing joint patrols and they're doing laps around Japan. And Japan has disputes with both countries over islands. And they're just doing laps around the island nation of Japan because fuck you. And I ask this question when I say, like, who's the bad guy here, the bear or the one that's poking the bear? So, a chicken and egg type of situation, like, are you the bad guy knowing that the bear's an asshole and he'll bite your hand, but you poke him anyway? Or is it the bear the asshole when he wakes up and bites you because he's the bear and you poked it? I would say the person poking the bear is probably the bigger asshole. And as we get into the people that are poking the bear, with the Eurozone, inflation jumps to 8.6% in Eurozone with 42% rise in energy costs because you hitched your fucking wagon to Putin. And then you started poking him afterwards. So the European Central Bank is poised to increase interest rates in late July when they meet. The bank could also boost rates again in September if it doesn't have effect on inflation. The central banks have operated with negative rates since 2014. Right? So let's just keep artificially manipulating the markets and expect a different outcome in Europe. And the other thing, as we were talking about earlier with the US economy, like they're trying to put the they're trying to shut the door after the cat got out of the house. Like they're the economy is already negative, and now they're going to go in and they're going to uh, increase interest rates against weakness. Again, with experts like this, who needs Putin, and uh, more just Jesus Christ on a bike, fuck me to tears. The European Central Bank will buy Italian Greek bonds using proceeds from German French bonds to avoid crash. Uh, Borrow from Peter to pay Paul to keep the European economy afloat because you're fucking retarded. And then we get back to Mark Rutte or Rutte or whatever his stupid name is. Oh no, excuse me. We got one more stupidity. So we have the Danish Prime Minister, Meet Frederiksen. I don't care. Having to come out and say that the commission criticized Frederiksen's office for the actions that led to the gross misleading of mink breeders and the public, and the clearly illegal instructions to authorities. Because nothing makes it okay by saying sorry to the government after you use your monopoly of force to murder 15 million minks because the good idea fairy said, they may be infected with COVID, and let's just go murder these minks. But it's okay, because as long as you say that you're sorry and you misled the public that and gave clearly illegal instructions, everything's okay, and continue on. Will your judgment is sound from here, all is forgiven. And so we're moving on from the Danish to the Dutch. If I didn't ruin that one, we have all this economic downturn going on in Europe, and the Dutch have decided that they want to push through. It says the Dutch governing coalition has mandated reductions in emissions of nitrogen oxides, ammonia of up to 70% in areas of the countries close to the protected nature areas, and even reaching as high as 95% in some places. The government has been forced to act after courts in recent years began blocking permits for infrastructure and housing projects because the country was missing its emission targets. Because keep manipulating the market and expect a different fucking outcome. Because the Leviathan can only control everything, and when it can't, it needs to clean up the mess that it made it itself to keep itself alive. Like, this is ridiculous. And this is the country with the second leader behind the U.S. in exports of agriculture is the Netherlands. And then you're just going to choke your largest portion of your economy off because you've done fucked up in your implementation of regulatory emission targets. So what do the farmers do now that you're fucking retarded and you're going to kill their livelihood? You have the Dutch Prime Minister, good old Mark Rutte. You look at that guy; he's got a very punchable face. He decides that he's going to go condemn them for having mostly peaceful protests, including smearing manure and blocking traffic with their tractors and shooting fireworks off at public official houses. There were arrests, so I can't entirely say that it was peaceful, but I don't care because I find it funny. Yeah, so let's continue to do that. According to the National Farm Lobbying Group, LTO, there are nearly 54,000 agricultural businesses in the Netherlands with exports totaling 94.5 billion euros, about $99 million in 2019. And as part of this, you're going to basically choke 70% in areas close to protected nature and even 95% in some places because you're incompetent with how you created regulations and how you tried to enforce them. And more, I think, on this. Oh yeah, the farmers went and blocked the border between Germany and Holland on this because fuck you. Um, Thousands of tractor driving Dutch protesters came out this week to continue demonstrations against the government's radical plan to cut nitrogen emissions by 30%, 30 to 70% as part of their green agenda. Because what green agenda means is dollars. It does not mean actual I give a fuck about the environment. You can't chase the dopamine high if you solve the problem. All you can do is turn it into a money laundering scheme to validate yourself. And I believe that's it. I think we got Julian Assange to talk about. And I've pointed out before, I still don't know enough about what's going on with Assange because of the amount of disinformation put out on both sides. This article I do want to talk about because fuck you, Business Insider. Julian, if you read right here, it says Julian Assange will get 175 years behind bars if the U.S. finds him guilty of 17 new changes filed on Thursday. WikiLeaks said in a statement. Changes, CHANGES. So, Business Insider, get an editor, preferably one that does not have a high school diploma, has no ethics, or will cheat on the exam in order to pass it. And then they can come, either work for the SEC, they can write articles for Business Insider, they can join the United States military, or they can go be an accountant. It really doesn't matter at this point because nothing fucking matters when you can't even, spell check yourself. And then to finish with Julian Assange, he is fighting his extradition. Whatever you think about him, if he's a journalist or he's some type of espionage guy, spy. So Julian Assange files fresh appeal against extradition to the U.S. and it just says, well, Mr. Assange has at the end, and I should point this out when we talk about Assange. So this is why I have a hard time understanding it. It says, while Mr. Assange was charged under the Trump administration, the case was based on evidence previously known to prosecutors. Some senior Biden Justice Department officials who held similar roles in the Obama administration hadn't authorized the case to go forward at the time. Some Obama era officials had concerns a prosecution of Mr. Assange could fall afoul of the First Amendment, giving the parallels between Mr. Assange's anti-secrecy work and that of the press. The Journal and others have reported. So this gets really murky about the actual, how shall we put this, agenda of certain people behind the scenes, because you have 3 different administrations involved with the handling of Julian Assange's case just in the U.S. Basically, 2 of the administrations, the Obama administration and the Biden administration, have such an ancestral bond that they are the same people. And even though Assange was charged under Trump, this is, again, the deep state being left over from the Obama administration. So whose agenda is what? And do they really give a shit about running afoul of the First Amendment? I honestly don't fucking know. And how big of a, how big of a role that the Trump administration played in all this also, because again, the Biden administration could have just put a halt to all this when they came over, but they didn't. But the Biden administration is carryover from the Obama administration, who originally handled the case and had the evidence. I don't fucking know. So anyway, it's been a little longer on this Friday. Fuck you, Netherlands.